The Galactic King had conquered 12,000 species. His empire spanned 7 arms of the galaxy. He ruled not through compassion, but through perfection, logistical, technological, biological. Emotion was a defect. Fear was for prey. He had no use for it. The last war fought ended in 36 hours. Orbital strikes disabled all global communications. Kinetic rods flattened military installations. Their oceans boiled, cities melted, satellites crashed, and nations vanished. Humanity, as a species, fell silently, and yet something was wrong. A single signal lingered, human in origin, weak, encrypted. The king dispatched his warden-class collectors to retrieve any survivors. Most were feral, starving, mad, dying. One wasn't. A human woman. Young, silent, eyes forward. They found her beside a ruined mountain base, seated cross-legged atop frozen ash. She surrendered herself without resistance. Scanners found no augmentation, no weapon, no comms. She was brought to the orbital citadel for interrogation. No response. They assumed trauma. They were wrong. The king watched her through black glass walls. She stared back, not at the guards or the lenses, but past them, through them. She blinked less than normal. Her heartbeat remained steady. No panic, no confusion, no plea. She didn't sleep the first night, nor the second. When offered food, she nodded, ate, and returned to silence. When asked her name, she gave none. Her language profile matched Earth's general speech, but she didn't use it. A drone malfunctioned during testing. No one could explain why. She blinked once. Her first evaluation concluded she had no military value. The second questioned that conclusion. The third reclassified her as high interest. The king decided to witness her in person. For the first time in 3 centuries, he descended from the throne perch to a level 5 containment wing. His advisors called it beneath him. He ignored them. The corridor cleared. The doors hissed open. He stepped inside. She was seated, restrained, yet calm. She lifted her head slowly. Their eyes met. The king spoke in a composite voice of 12 frequencies. "Do you know who I am?" She nodded once. "Do you know why you're here?" She said nothing. He felt something. Distant, faint, not respect, not defiance. Something worse. Indifference. She was not impressed by him. She wasn't waiting to die. She wasn't planning escape. She was simply waiting. The king ordered enhanced probes, neural mapping, pain stimulation, cognitive resonance. She endured it all. No scream, no flinch. When disconnected, she looked at the operator and asked, "Was that all?" The translator glitched. Her words were clean, precise, unaccented. The operator collapsed moments later. Unrelated, they said. Coincidence. The king reviewed her records. No military file, no rank, no awards. But her retinal signature matched one flag from a failed orbital escape attempt. The child of General Merrick-Yall, Earth's last resistance commander, killed during the surrender. She was 14 then. Now she was 22. She had vanished during Earth's fall, reappeared beside the wreckage of a forgotten base. She shouldn't exist, but she did, and she was smiling. Sleep eluded the king that night, not due to fatigue, but memory, a new one, fabricated, manufactured by his own mind. He dreamed of Earth, of fire, of ash, and in the flames she stood untouched, watching. The next morning, 3 guards requested reassignment from her cell. "There's something wrong with her," one said. "She looks at you like you're already dead." Internal Affairs dismissed it as trauma exposure. They were reassigned, but more followed. 12 guards in 2 weeks. She started humming. No pattern, no lyrics, just 5 notes looped. It bled into the corridors. Monitor communications picked up matching frequencies among prison personnel. A guard in a different wing was whistling it unconsciously. A medic recorded it in his sleep. The melody had no known cultural origin. A viral trace was considered. Test results were clean. Analysts labeled it a mimetic artifact. The king labeled it a threat. He ordered her relocated to Isolation Core Theta, a place with no echoes, no air resonance. She continued humming, lips closed. The sound still reached the outer halls. They silenced her with vocal inhibitors. She tapped the melody into the floor. The echo traveled through vibrations. The song spread anyway. Prisoners began humming it, then workers, then officers. It became known as the ghost tune. It was banned, but like a whisper in the dark, it kept returning. Unseen, unbroken, the king visited again. She was restrained, but upright, breathing calmly. "What do you want?" he asked. She tilted her head. "That's the wrong question." "Then what's the right one?" he demanded. She leaned forward. "Why are you afraid of me?" He laughed, but it felt hollow. "I fear nothing." She studied his face for several seconds, then whispered, "Then you're blind." That night, he had another dream, not of war, not of conquest, but of silence, endless, suffocating silence. And her, watching. The king began isolating his advisors. Some questioned his judgment. He removed them. Others noticed. Some stopped reporting. The empire didn't run on loyalty. It ran on precision. And now it hesitated, second-guessed. The ripples started small. A planetary governor delayed a shipment. A naval commander refused to fire on an unarmed vessel. The reasons were administrative. The truth was fear, not of the king, but of the girl, of what she represented. She refused to break. They tried empathy simulations, memory hacking, gaslighting, sleep disruption, chemical distortion. She endured everything. No cracks, only calm. The last attempt involved holographic manipulation of her family's death. She watched it without blinking, then looked the operator in the eye and said, "That's not how it happened." The file had been fabricated seconds prior. There was no way she could have known, but she did. The king summoned her once more. Alone, he removed all guards, all surveillance. Just the two of them. He wanted to look into her mind directly. No machines, no filters, just presence. He sat across from her. She met his gaze. No challenge, no fear, no malice, only something worse. "Pity, why don't you scream?" he asked. "Why don't you beg?" She smiled. "Because I've already won." He laughed. "You're a prisoner." She nodded. "And yet, you're the one trying to understand me. I study all threats." "No, you fear what you can't control, and I'm not here to be controlled." He leaned forward. "What are you, then?" She didn't blink. Proof. The room dimmed. The lights stuttered. Not a power failure. A deliberate pulse. The AI adjusted, but something slipped through. A low-frequency wave. Below hearing. Above understanding. Her heartbeat synced to it. Monitors showed no anomaly, but the king felt something inside his chest. A tension, a tightness, something he hadn't known in millennia. Doubt. He ended the session abruptly, ordered the AI to purge her data. It failed 3 times. Her files reappeared instantly, with new entries, not made by any device. The timestamps didn't match any time system in the Empire. They weren't from the future. They were from outside of time. The humming spread. No one gave the order. No one needed to. It started in maintenance halls, then the cargo bays. Soon, corridors meant only for commanders echoed with soft, aimless tunes. The girl had not spoken since her last words to the king, but she had said enough. Her silence now held more power than any speech. Prisoners stared at walls with faint smiles. Technicians lost focus mid-task. Subtle, infectious. The hum was not music. It was a symbol. The king demanded a halt. It failed. Directives banning the tune were ignored in subtle ways. Files corrupted. Footage scrubbed. Witnesses denied hearing it. His empire had crushed rebellions across galaxies, but none had started with sound that didn't officially exist. Officials coined it a psychological anomaly. Analysts warned of something worse. Belief. A mining moon delayed its quotas. The governor was summoned. He had no excuse, just a message. We're no longer afraid. He was executed, but not before whispering, "Neither is she." The king tripled surveillance on her. She hadn't moved in days. The footage showed stillness, breathing, blinking. That was all. But watchers reported unease, nausea, palpitations. Some refused to look at her feed altogether. A few reported dreams. They stopped reporting. The advisors offered a term: defiance contagion. Not biological, not viral. A mimetic fracture in submission psychology. Her presence had created a break in the assumption that the king could not be resisted. And because she resisted without violence, without demands, she changed the definition of power. That made her the most dangerous weapon ever created. The king demanded an audit, a full internal trace of her origin, every file, every encounter, everything Earth knew. What he found unsettled him. The woman had no consistent name. She had existed in redacted logs, closed-door projects, black-budget facilities. Not a soldier, not a spy, but something else. A quiet phrase kept appearing in scattered fragments. Project Iron Will. No formal record survived. Only loose notes in dead languages. Human intelligence had anticipated planetary defeat, so they created not a resistance movement, but a psychological weapon. One that couldn't be detected, decrypted, or undone. Not artificial, not mechanical. Just one person. Built not to kill, but to endure. A girl, trained to remain calm while the world burned. Because if she didn't break, others wouldn't either. The king convened the shadow board. 12 minds across 12 sectors. Experts in control, manipulation, fear. They observed her, reviewed every moment since her capture. One asked, "What does she want?" None could answer. Another offered, "It's not what she wants. It's what she threatens." Order. But she hadn't issued a threat. That was the problem. One of the board members proposed termination again. Quiet, clinical, absolute. But the motion failed. Fear had taken root. Not of her escape, but of what would happen if she was destroyed. What if she became a martyr? A myth? Alive, she was a problem. Dead, she was legend. Either way, she was no longer just a human girl. She was becoming an idea. In the lower tiers, soldiers began hesitating, following orders but with less zeal. The indoctrination simulation started to lose efficacy. Instructors reported more questions from recruits. Doubts, curiosity, all of them traced back to Earth. To her, it wasn't the resistance that infected them. It was the way she looked at the king and didn't blink. The king ordered her relocated again. Isolation Core Epsilon. Maximum suppression. No reflections. No sound. No echo. This time, she closed her eyes. For 4 days, she didn't move. No hum. No taps. Just stillness. And yet, on the 5th day, the humming returned. No one could trace it. It appeared simultaneously in 5 separate prisons. The tone was identical, not recorded, recreated, from memory. Worse, alien prisoners, species that had never met humans, began joining the hum. Some began chanting in broken Earth dialects. The phrases were nonsense, but the cadence was familiar, a rhythm of rebellion. The king ordered neural dampeners. They failed. One guard tore out his ear to stop hearing it. He failed, too. The sound wasn't in the air. It was in the mind. The girl remained silent, but the effect expanded. Pirate factions stopped attacking cargo lanes. Some began leaving messages. Human accord. No one knew what it meant. The king's best cryptographers found no historical reference. Not in any human database. Not in any coalition record. And still, the phrase repeated, spray-painted, whispered, burned into walls. Human accord. A governor went dark, then a station, then an entire lunar colony. All had once housed human prisoners. Now empty. No evidence of assault. No bodies. Only a phrase etched into every control panel. If one of us stands, none of us fall. The king returned to her cell. She sat as before, silent, still, watching. He asked her what the human accord was. She tilted her head just slightly and replied, "The mirror you broke." He asked again. She said nothing. He demanded. She blinked. It's what you feared we'd become if we ever remembered who we were. The king ordered her sedated. The sedation failed. 3 medical officers reported sleep paralysis that night. One walked into space without a suit, smiling. The Empire began reclassifying human cognitive profiles as anomalous. They restricted discussion, blocked archives, language bans initiated. But it was too late. The girl had spoken, not loudly, not often, but she had said the only thing that mattered. You've already lost. A fleet commander refused to fire on a rebel convoy. His statement was broadcast. I won't murder free minds. He was executed. But his final message circulated before filters caught it. It was a recording of the girl's hum, slowed to 1/4 speed. It resembled a heartbeat. The king demanded her brain scan again, this time manually. No machines, pure observation. One observer began weeping uncontrollably. Another confessed to crimes he had not committed, the last acid effect. The king knew then. It wasn't about her strength. It was her stillness. She didn't resist in the way they understood. She didn't fight back. She waited. And while she waited, she transformed the structure around her. The empire began shrinking. Economies trembled. Border colonies rebelled. Ancient vassals began petitioning for independence, not through weapons, through silence. Ships began flying to human accord insignia, a single unbroken circle. The girl said nothing. But when the king looked at her, he understood what every planet now feared, that she didn't want to be freed. She wanted to stay exactly where she was, because from that cell, she could unravel an empire. The king had one option left. He placed her in cryostasis. Not death, not life, suspension. He froze her in a perfect cube, locked inside quantum stasis. No thought, no sound, no movement. The humming stopped. For 1 week, the Empire sighed relief. Then, across hundreds of worlds, the humming returned. Louder, and a new message arrived. Not broadcast, not traced, just a voice. Her voice, not from the cube, but from everywhere. We are still awake. The king stood alone in the Citadel core. His empire no longer obeyed. The girl did not need to speak anymore. She had become the message, and the message could not be silenced. The stasis chamber was flawless, sealed at quantum thresholds. No thought could escape, no signal, no sound. She was contained, but the message wasn't. The voice kept returning. Not playback, not simulation. Her exact cadence, her exact inflection. No system could trace the origin. It appeared in sleep logs, sensor pulses, noise floors. Always the same phrase. We are still awake. That alone was enough to ignite the next wave. Entire fleets stopped responding. Not all at once. In slow, deliberate sequence. They weren't ambushed. They weren't hacked. They just ceased contact. Patrol routes were skipped. Signals redirected. Subordinates delayed responses by minutes, then hours. Eventually, they stopped entirely. Loyalty was no longer assumed. The king initiated emergency protocols. No system obeyed instantly. The neural chains binding command structures degraded. Not broken, dismissed. Discipline had eroded not through war, but through awareness. One by one, officers began deciding they were not afraid. No rally, no violence, just decision. The empire didn't collapse in fire. It began forgetting how to function. Then came the signals. Ghost transmissions. Nonlinear bursts of code bouncing across old Earth networks. Disconnected decades ago. Scrambled remnants of human systems. But they were no longer random. Patterns emerged. Coordinated rhythms matching the hum she once shared. All frequencies formed a single instruction. Wake. One by one, old satellites reactivated. Unmanned. Long dormant. Built in secret and forgotten after Earth fell. They weren't weapons. They were relays. One station just beyond a binary pulsar began broadcasting encrypted pulses through gravitational lensing. Too precise to be coincidence. Too human to be alien. A forgotten AI awakened. The king initiated protocol lockdowns across data infrastructure, but the AI wasn't inside the empire. It was beneath it, built before Earth's fall, buried beneath old systems, coded by humans who knew they would lose. It didn't fight for control. It whispered ideas. Loyalty fractures increased. The first commander defected silently. No declaration. She removed her insignia and redirected her ship toward deep space. Hundreds followed within days. The king issued execution orders. They were not followed. No resistance. Just silence. One by one, ships disappeared from the registry. They weren't running. They were choosing. Earth had lost its armies, but not its memory. On Colony World Vexen. For civilians painted the old Earth crest onto administrative centers. When questioned, they gave no answer. They just kept painting. Children began humming. No one taught them. They weren't alive when Earth existed, but they knew. The king ordered planetary bombardment. The weapons charged, then failed. Officers refused to fire. The king summoned his high command. All present, all silent, he demanded plans. They asked a single question. What if she's right? He dismissed them. One said softly, she doesn't need to win, just to outlast you. That one disappeared hours later. No one spoke of it, but no one forgot either. The cube remained sealed. No activity, no breach. Yet all change originated from her. They ran diagnostics. She was frozen, but her influence had become post-physical, not spiritual, not divine, intentional, structured. Every echo a design, every silence a signal. She had become more than one person. She had become a context, a second AI activated, this one from Mars. Codenamed Ghost Bridge, connected to secure relays stretching across blacksite arrays. Designed not for combat, but for conversion. It reactivated drones left adrift, sent recon to key Empire systems. No weapons, just observation. And then reflection. The king watched footage from a mining vessel. Two aliens standing in silence. One asked the other why they weren't running. The other replied, because she didn't. That was enough. Inside the cube, no change registered. But one camera flickered. One frame lost. Recovered later. It showed her eyes slightly open. Just 1 second. A blink. But it caused panic in security centers. 30 officers transferred within the hour. That night, all sensors recorded the same anomaly. A hum. Not mechanical. Internal. A data burst leaked across the Empire. A transmission from 20 years ago. General Merrick, her father, his last words before death. Not recorded. Not preserved. Lost in the scorched command center. Now recovered in perfect quality. His voice, if they take our world, we will give them our silence. And our silence will be louder than their screams. That sentence spread farther than any military order. Entire planets declared independence. Quietly. No flags. No armies. Just refusal. The king tried to reassert control. But the structure was gone. His power had been relational. Now those relations had ceased. He still ruled the Citadel. But nothing else. He demanded the cube opened. Advisors refused, citing unknown consequences. What if she's not asleep? They asked. What if she's waiting for you to blink? Across a dozen sectors, Earth's old probes began broadcasting again. Not attacks. Messages. Offers. Not threats. Invitations. We remember. Do you? Entire species once subjugated by the Empire responded, not with ships, but with silence. They shut down communication with the Empire entirely. The king existed, but alone. The cube finally cracked. It wasn't explosion. It wasn't sabotage. The material had been stable, but the cube itself had begun to fracture on a molecular level. No external influence. No heating. No damage. Just entropy. Her entropy. A perfectly contained field that began rewriting local physics. Inside, she sat upright, unchanged, alive, awake. She said nothing, but the AI systems crashed, not from overload, from rejection. She didn't override them. She made them irrelevant. The king entered alone. She stood. He asked nothing. She stepped forward. He stepped back. She said a single word. Now! Outside, hundreds of Empire ships began turning. Not by command. By choice. AI systems activated long-dormant Earth protocols. Not weapons. Words. We were never gone. The king ordered her shot. Nothing happened. The guards looked at him, then at her, then lowered their weapons. He shouted. No one responded. She walked past him. He dropped to one knee, not in surrender, in disbelief. She turned once, looked at him. You weren't afraid of us. You were afraid we'd make everyone else realize they never had to be. She disappeared. The citadel fell without resistance. The Empire disbanded without war. No final battle. No fleets in flame. Just a realization. That one human girl had survived the fall of Earth not to fight, but to remind others what fearlessness looked like. It was enough. Worlds once conquered began rebuilding, not in Earth's image, in their own, but inspired by one simple human trait, refusal. They formed no new empire, no grand alliance, just a promise. If fear returns, so will she. The human accord was not a government. It was a truth. That silence could be sharper than blades. That waiting could be stronger than armies. And that one girl could bring down 1,000-year reign without ever lifting a weapon. Because she didn't need to destroy the king. He did that himself, the moment he realized he couldn't break her. And when the galaxy remembered, it remembered not her name, but what she represented. A single unbroken line. Stillness in the face of death. And the last thing the Galactic King ever feared.